Jack, welcome back to my channel.
Hi.
And here we go again in this series. So, the first video we talked about the meaning of the truth, which is so important because once you leave the truth, you need to know, replace what the actual truth means. So, that was the first video. If you guys didn't miss it, I would advise you to watch it. Now, the second video is we knew that our purpose as Jehovah's Witnesses was to preach God's word, bring in the kingdom. But now that you're not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, what is your purpose? And is there such thing as purpose? And why is it so difficult for the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses to find what their purpose is?
Yeah, thank you, Vivian, for having me one more time. This is a really important subject, especially to my heart, because I felt really depressed after I woke up. I started having suicidal thoughts, and I realized that the very reason why that is happening, because I felt like I lost my purpose. Like the reason why I'm here was gone, because Jehovah's Witnesses have a very clear-cut purpose in life. And that's something that most people actually don't have it, but they do. They have a very clear-cut definition of what that is, why they're here, where they come from, what times that we live in, and what the future holds. Most religions answers those three questions: where we come from, where we are right now, and where we're going later. So the purpose is aligned usually with this. So when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you have this identity attached to yourself as Jehovah's Witness or representative of God. And no matter what you do in life, no matter what decision you make, it's always based on that identity. And in psychology, it's like the strongest force in human psychology is to stay consistent with the way we identify ourselves. It's very important to understand this. If we change how we identify ourselves, our behavior changes, our decisions change, and as a matter of fact, our quality of life changes based on that. So when you're a Jehovah's Witness and you think, I am a Jehovah's Witness 24/7, it's not like you go to work and you clock out. All your decisions are based on that. The person you're going to choose to marry, the education that you're going to choose, the car you're going to drive, right? Like people are like, what do you mean car? Well, are you going to buy a sports car with 2-door, or you're going to buy a 4-door sedan that is good for service, right? Like it's very important, to understand the psychology of Jehovah's Witnesses, because majority of their decision are all around this. Is this decision will interfere with the meetings that I go to? Is it going to interfere with the service? Or will it allow me to pioneer or expand the kingdom, right? That's their purpose. So when you leave and you don't have that anymore, it just your world collapses. And I feel for so many people, because I felt like, man, without this, my life does not matter anymore. Because this was like the most important work. We were saving lives, for crying out loud. Nothing else was more important. I mean, you could be working on curing cancer. And if you found the cure for cancer and you gave this cure to the whole world for free, they would consider that to be a waste of time. That's how powerful that is. Because they would say, well, you just help small amount of people postpone their death. You didn't save anybody's life, you just postponed their death. Well, we're working on something that is for eternity. You're saving lives forever, and people could live on the paradise earth forever. How can you beat that? So it's very difficult for people to reconstruct this afterwards. And in your psychology, it really changes. So here's what the biggest challenge is. If you don't redefine it, you're going to be lost most of your life. You're going to live in kind of a pain and pleasure reaction. Whatever feels good, you're going to do. Whatever feels bad, you're going to try to avoid. Most animals live like that, to be honest with you. Right? Humans have this capacity of thinking and determining our purpose and living up to it. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The question is there such a thing as a purpose for all of us? This is just my opinion. Of course, there's many opinions out there. My opinion is that the purpose of our life is to improve the quality of life for ourselves and others. But the beauty about this is that we choose how we want to improve that quality of life. And everybody has that choice. We have all free will, and one person will decide, I want to improve the quality of life by becoming a doctor. Another one will say, I'm a lawyer, I'm an architect. I want to become a bricklayer. I want to become a carpenter. I want to improve the quality of life, and I want to work. And with your work, with your mind, with your experience, with your knowledge and skills, you will help other people to improve their life and yours as well. And when we see that we're making that impact, that's when we start feeling that, oh, you know what? I made a difference. And that's where it starts growing to be better and better for us once we redefine it. But at the same time, it's important to realize that there is more than one. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you were in this box believing there is only one purpose in life. The truth is there's unlimited amount of purposes in life. And it changes, and it always changes, and it will always change. Because when you were 5 years old, your purpose in life was different than when you were 15. And your purpose will change if you hit 25. And if you hit 40 or 50, your purpose in life will change and will be different when you're 70. Depending on your time in life, depending on how old you are and what you're doing, that purpose will change. And you get to choose how you want to serve this world by the time that you're in and the person that is standing in front of you. So if you're standing in front of your child, then you're going to say, I am a parent. And your purpose changes automatically. On the front of that child, you are a parent to them. You're not their friend. You're not their coach. You're not their neighbor. You are their parent. However, to your spouse, you're not a parent of your spouse. So the moment you go from one room to another, your purpose will change, because when you're serving your spouse, you're going to talk differently to them. You're going to have different conversations, have different feelings, right? And different purpose. You're serving another human being, and the person is a different than the other one, and your purpose will change according to who you're serving. So when I coach people, I ask them to sit down and literally write all the I ams that they have in life. I am a daughter. I am a wife. I am an employee or an employer. I am a gardener. I am whatever it is that they love doing, whatever they define themselves, whatever comes after that I am will define us who we are. And it's very important to realize how impactful that is on our psychology, because some people will define themselves as I am a loser, right? And that is huge, huge. I can't do anything. I'm worthless. I'm useless. And that has a strong impact on how they perform and what they can do. Coming out as Jehovah's Witnesses from that religion, very few people actually have a strong belief in themselves, because they went to 1,000 doors and they heard rejection after rejection after rejection. And when they knock on the door and the people said no, guess what happens? They say no. And they say, I'm not interested. And then you go to another door and they say, no, I'm not interested again. And then 1,000 doors later, you're hoping that they're not home. Right? You're hoping they will reject you. You're okay with rejection. You're not okay with acceptance. You're scared of people accepting you. People would open the door like, come on in. Oh, sir, we're Jehovah's Witnesses. Are you sure you're agreeing for us to come in? Because we're offering magazines we didn't read ourselves. We just heard no so often. It was normal. It was comfortable to be rejected. That created a belief. Maybe we believed in the message we were spreading, but all of a sudden, after hearing so many no's and being comfortable with rejection, we started believing that we will not make any difference, that nobody will listen to us, that we're not impacting anybody and we can't change anybody's mind. We're just doing what we're supposed to do, check off the territory, check off the hours, be rewarded for showing up, and that's it. That's not how life is. Life is the opposite to that. It doesn't matter how many hours you put in. What matters is what kind of a result you're bringing to the table. If you don't bring any results and you're just bringing lots of hours of work, nobody cares. And this is why so many witnesses, they really have a hard time being happy. And a lot of them they're on depression pills and really struggling, is because they can't even take credit for any of their work. Right? This is why it's so difficult for them to feel fulfilled. They might feel happy for a moment, but inside they're like, oh, there's always more that I can do, and I'm not doing enough. No matter how much they do, they could be regular pioneers, they could be circuit officers. Can I do more? Circuit officer would come once every 6 months, would give the talk. You guys are doing great here and here and here. Let's focus what you can do more. And everybody's like, well, more. Right? And it's constantly more and more and more. And that really creates that belief of, am I enough? Probably not. Comparing yourself to pioneers or circuit overseers or just even average of the congregation, if you're below, constantly made that feeling that I'm not good enough. And this is why they have such a hard time with finding a purpose.
Thank you so much for that very thorough explanation of purpose and why it's so important for us to find a purpose. So can you go into why is it so important for our mental health to find purpose? If you can,
Very good question.
talk about
Yeah,
that
when
for a
it
little
comes
bit.
to mental health, I think if we don't find a purpose of in the whole world, if you look all around you, everything rather is growing or it's dying. There is no such thing as plateau, unless you're dead and it's just a straight line. Everything is growing or dying. If we're not growing, we're not happy. If we don't see progress, we're not happy. We got to see that something is getting better and better. If things are getting worse, then we're automatically not happy. And when we have a purpose, then we know which direction to go. And when we live our purpose, then we feel fulfilled. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be very simple. But when we align with it, then even when we have a really hard times, we will win. And I tell you why I say that. People like Jehovah's Witnesses or Jewish people, they were thrown into a concentration camp. There was a fantastic book. I recommend anybody to read it. It's called Men's Search for Meaning. And it was written by a doctor who was a Jewish doctor, ended up in the concentration camp. And he shares his story, how people literally had to make sense out of this horrible, horrible events that were taking place. How to find meaning in life when all your friends and family are starving to death all around you, and you just see this cruelty on a level this world has not seen, right? And I don't want to spoil it to you, but please read that book. It's absolutely fantastic. But it was amazing how those who survived mentally, those who took those events and they created a different meaning than everybody else. Some people realize, you know what? This is happening to me. And I'm going to turn this around to make sure that it never happens again. I want to make sure by writing poems, books, or whatever I can to pass this on for generations to come, to make sure that this kind of behavior will never be tolerated ever again. And they will reframe things in such a way that no matter how painful the experience is, they will find like, this is actually not happening to me, but it's happening for me. And when it's happening for me, then I have a much stronger purpose and drive to survive this. And the strength comes. And instead of shutting down and saying, oh, this is too much for me to handle, no, I'm getting refined. I'm becoming a better human being, right? All the diamonds are diamonds because there was a lot of pressure for a very long time. And this is why we have diamonds. And that's how we can see ourselves. There's something called post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth. And the difference between one and the other is the person who found a meaning in the painful situation that happened.
Such a good book, Mankind's Search for Meaning, and post-traumatic wisdom is a theme in Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey's new book, What Happened to You, which I absolutely recommend. Mankind's Search for Meaning, also such a great book. Thank you so much for bringing those two into the light. And what happened, it's, I love what you also said about what is happening for you, or repeat the sentence again, because now I'm having a brain fart.
It's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yes. So I think that line is so important, because that's For me, it's about if you're getting sick, if you're having some kind of distress, if something is triggering you, what's happening to you is actually for you because it's allowing you to acknowledge that something is wrong in your life. You need to change. As you said, we're supposed to be constantly changing. We're not a tree. We're not planted in one place at the same time. So that the thought of things happening to us is kind of a distorted message, but everything in life is happening for us. If we look at it in a victor role instead of a victim role,
Absolutely.
your mindset is completely going to shift. Because if
Yes.
you're going to say, I'm this way because of the Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm this way because of this person,
Yeah. It's BS.
it's BS, and you're going to stay the same for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And
How come?
that's a choice.
Yeah, how come one person was a Jehovah's Witness and the other one was Jehovah's Witness? I brought maybe even the same household, maybe even twins. And then
Absolutely.
they wake up and then one becomes a victor and the other one for the rest of their life is blaming other people, saying, I am a victim because of this is what they did to me. The difference is in meaning, what meaning you put into the event and what you do with it after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we can easily change our beliefs. Our beliefs are something that we can
Of course.
completely change. Again, they're not written in stone, and it's still a choice whether or not you want to believe in certain beliefs that the Jehovah's Witnesses gave to you, or you want to have a different form of beliefs. And they don't all need to be replaced with something else. Just become curious about it. That's always what I tell people who
Yes.
are leaving. Become curious about whatever it is that's coming up for you. Just because we're talking about this right now doesn't mean that that person should believe this.
Yes.
Ask yourself, does this mean anything to me? Does this make sense to me?
Right.
So ask a personal question. I think people are so scared of looking within and asking themselves personal questions because they're so used to listening to the elder, the circuit overseer, whoever on the stage, that asking themselves a question, it almost seems like, oh, who, me? I'm just a little sheep. Like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Well,
I
guess
have a
what?
choice.
I have a choice. What? I didn't know I have certain beliefs and certain truths and all this other stuff. Well,
Yes.
guess what you do? You
Yes.
also have an intuition and a gut that is telling you certain things that you have not listened to for years, decades. So
Yes.
this is a perfect opportunity for you to reconnect with your gut and your intuition, and that gut and that intuition is going to tell you whether or not you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. And that calm, rational feeling is the gut. All the other things are just going to be in the brain. They're a headspace, and they're going to make you more confused. They're going to make you more just not really structured and in tune with where you're supposed to go. But if this is resonating to you and you're like, wow, this makes sense, and it's making you feel very calm, this is your gut and your instincts, like listen to them. This is a great
Yes.
way for you to reconnect with something that you have disconnected from, and it's part of us human beings. So we're human beings and not human doing. We don't need to do anything to feel loved or validated. We should be
Yes.
loved for just being human. That's where the unconditional love comes from versus the not conditional love that
Earned.
we had as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
um,
Absolutely.
So one more question I wanted to ask you
Sure.
is, how do we know when we find our purpose? Thank you so much for letting me go on my little tangent, by the way. So
No, no,
how
I
do
love
we
it. I love it. This is
how do we then know that we have found our purpose? And before we go into that, I want to add too that I feel like every single human that's born on this planet has a special gift that they can contribute to help
yes,
people live a better life, whether it's through art, music, carpentry. Like everyone has that, but it's the now that we're now Jehovah's Witnesses, now we can get curious again, curiosity, and then just get busy and do the things that you've been
yes,
wanting to do, and you will find your purpose as far as like career as far as that's concerned. So just getting curious about that. And I think it's so important for people to know that I've at least I feel every single person on this planet has a gift that they can share with the world. Okay, so
absolutely.
again, I'm going to say the last question I had for you. How do we know when we found our purpose?
When it actually happens, okay, you will know. But there are certain signs that I notice for people who found their purpose and they live their purpose. there is commonalities all among themselves, are almost always the same. Number one, they'll tell you time disappears. It disappears. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? Then you're thinking it took you maybe 2 hours to do something, and then 7 passed, right? Because you loved it so much that you're shocked you spent 12 hours and you're not even tired, right? That's one of the reasons of recognizing that you're living your purpose. Time gets literally distorted.
It's called the flow. Things just happen, and you just keep. They're like, oh, 3 hours went by. Like, what?
Yeah, you're in the zone. You're in the zone, and you're like, your mind, your body, your spirit is all connected, and you're like, I'm doing this. I love it, and it feels like you can't get tired of doing this, right? And so time disappears. Second, you feel like you can do this for the rest of your life, and no problem. You will never feel like you regret not doing something else. Right? That's another one. Also, you feel like you're producing a lot more results, okay, than with a lot less effort. So you compare yourself maybe to other people, and they're struggling doing the same task, even though maybe they're same strength or same age or whatever. And for them, it's like pulling teeth, but for you, it's like no problem, boom, 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 it's done, right? It's just because you're in your zone, right? You feel like inspired. And if you can ask yourself this question to find out if this is it. Very important. Imagine you are at the end of your life. This is your last day, and the only thing that you can do is look back. And you think, would I have any regrets if all my life I spent on this one thing? And if the answer is no, that is your purpose. If the answer is, yeah, I would regret doing this, then keep looking. Then look for something else, because that's not your purpose. It does not resonate. You're doing this because somebody else did it. Somebody else told you this is how you're going to make money. This is how you're supporting your family. I'm not saying give up your income just for the sake of your purpose. You might be doing things on the weekend. You might be doing something on the evening. You might be doing something on your vacation or whatever that truly drives you, right, towards your purpose. And that's how you will know. The challenge with Jehovah's Witnesses, they were never allowed to think that way, because the purpose was given to them. And the way Jehovah's Witnesses ask questions, it was extremely difficult for them to find out how can they become the person they wanted to be. It's almost impossible, because most of the questions Jehovah's Witnesses ask, they're presupposing questions, which literally frame somebody's mind before that person even realizes what is right, what is wrong. I'll give you an example. If you open any watchtower and then you'll read the questions that they will ask, all the questions presuppose the answer. It's like, what proofs do we have that the governing body is directed by Holy Spirit? Well, that presupposes that the governing body is directed by Holy Spirit. It's not a question if they're directed by Holy Spirit. It's just, how do we know, or what proofs do we have, which already shapes how you're thinking. They would never ask, did you enjoy the last convention? Not a chance. They would always ask, what did you enjoy about the last convention? Presupposes you actually enjoyed it, right? What blessings did you have by serving in Bethel? It presupposes the answer. You read the Watchtower, it's always like that. It's always leading questions. So people never had the chance to learn how to think for themselves, because they were the answer was already in a question. You go to the Watchtower and the answer is given to you. You first read the answer, then you go there, they read you the answer again, and then they ask a question and people repeat the answer. It's in a paragraph. There's no critical thinking whatsoever. And if anybody even shares a scripture that it's not mentioned in the paragraph, the people are like, did he really think that? Is that really the right scripture for it, right? You could be quoting the Bible, right? But it's not quoted in the paragraph, so maybe he took it out of context. They would criticize that person. So it's very important to learn how to ask the right questions. And the right question to ask, if you search for your meaning in life, is think about, would I have regrets? If I lived this path that I chose, would I have regrets? And if the answer is no, you got it. And if 10 years later you decide, you know what, there's a moment of saturation, I've done this for X amount of years, I'm tired of it, something else is juicing me up. Maybe the universe, I don't know, whatever, God or spirit or whatever is calling you to do something different, right? Change it, no problem. And then you're going to feel compelled to do something else. You're not married or bonded with the purpose that you choose for X amount of time. Like I said, when you're 5 years old, 15 years old, 50 years old, your purpose will change, and be open to it and enjoy your life and choose the purpose that makes an impact on others. I think that's a key. Because if we choose something that it's only for us, very quickly we'll run out of steam. But when we see the impact, when we see that other people's life is better because we were here, because we did something, and to turn things around, then we feel truly fulfilled.
Thank you so much for all of that wisdom. And I think that sometimes what your purpose is when you're younger can bring you into the purpose that you're in your, maybe you had a purpose in your 20s after like high school. It can change completely in your 30s and then in your 40s and in your 50s. As far as I'm concerned, what I was doing in my 20s led me to what I was doing in my 30s, and it led me to where I am now at 43. So one thing can lead you into another thing, and life will show you the direction that you're supposed to go once you actually start doing what it is that you are, what you feel like your purpose is. So once you get into that role of what you feel like your purpose is, this is my personal opinion, you're in that position, and now maybe it might be a very broad thing that you're into, and then you're in it, and then you, as you're in it, the years that you're in it, you might be like, you know what, I actually might want to fit this small niche of inside my purpose.
Yes.
And that maybe took you 10 years to get to that space. And you're like, you know what? This feels so right now. And then 10 years or whatever, a couple more years, you might fit something else. So constantly knowing that, like you said, your purpose is changing is very important to know that it does. I also want to say that as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, when you brought in I'm never enough, all the doubts that we had as
Yes,
witnesses
absolutely.
is going to continue for a really long time. Just acknowledging that the doubts are going to be there, but it's a choice whether or not you want to give those doubts any credit or take on that, take on the role of believing the doubts. It is a choice.
Yeah, of course. Of
Yes.
course.
It's just knowing that when you hear the doubts coming, just identify that as the Jehovah's Witnesses and say, you know what, I've been down that road, I don't want to listen to you, and then choose that other path. Because the less we give these thoughts energy, the smaller they get, and then they kind of just disappear, and you will hear those voices less and less. But if you give those voices more attention, they're going to dominate your headspace. So acknowledging them and then like disowning them from your head is really
Yes.
going to help you get into the direction that you need to get into.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people say, well, if you don't have this moral compass that Jehovah's Witnesses or Christians or whatever have, then what do you have in life as a guide, right? And it's hard for them to understand that we all have it, right? We all have it inside of us. You just got to ask yourself a better questions. You're gonna get better answers. So I can give you 4 that really guide me, that help me to determine, what to do, what not to do in life. And like you mentioned, the first question is, does it feel good? That means, does it resonate with me, right? If it doesn't feel good, there is a reason for it, right? But I have to ask that, right? Jehovah's Witnesses would often say, well, don't trust your own heart, don't rely on your own understanding. But there is quite a bit inside of you that can guide you this way or that way. And how does that feel? Listening to that gut feeling, listening to your heart, it's extremely important, right? That's the first question. But obviously, you let the kid in the candy store, he's going to say, this feels so good to eat sugar, right? So just because it feels good, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. So the second question is it good for you, right? And a lot of times, well, it feels good, but it's not good for me. So you got to ask that question. If I keep doing this for a long time, or even a short period of time, is it good for me, right? And the third question is it good for others? Is it good for other people? And so you ask yourself those questions, and you're gonna, cut off certain activities because you realize, well, maybe it feels good, but it's not good for me. It's definitely not good for others. Then maybe I shouldn't be engaged in this, right? But if it feels good and it's good for me and it's good for others, then it's something to look into. And the fourth one, is it good for the greater good? So is it aligned with my purpose? Will it serve maybe people who are not even born yet, for the future, for the better society or the planet, or whatever it is that we believe that will go after, that we can serve even after we die? Those are the strongest, right, the visions that people have. And once you answer those questions, that you'll be so much better at making decisions, instead of constantly looking at what the Jehovah's Witnesses are telling me what to do. Is this okay? Can I watch this video? Can I date this person? Can I buy this car? Right? Now you got to reconstruct your world completely, and you got to make your own decisions. But without the guidelines that you had before, a lot of people are completely lost. They're free, but they're confused. They're free, but they're alone. They're free, but they're hopeless. So they're like, oh yeah, I enjoy my freedom, but I'm miserable. I don't have any friends. I don't have any direction in life. I don't feel like I have a purpose. I don't think I have a meaning. I don't think I'm making any impact. I don't think I have any value. It's very common. Okay? So once you start listening to your own gut, you start determining which path you want to take in life, and you start seeing the impact that you're making, then you'll see that your life in that box you lived in was very, very limited, and you can live a fantastic life outside.
I also want to say, listening to your instinct and your gut is is a very simple concept, but it's not easy for the ex-Jehovah's Witness community or anyone leaving
No.
a high controlled religious group. But when you have it down packed, you won't go any other way. The heart is not treacherous. The heart is full of love and meaning and passion, and it drives you into such a beautiful place in your life. So your heart has its own system of
Yes.
it's running so many different ways for you just to live the best life. The disconnection that we've had as witnesses versus ex-witnesses is, again, it's such a different role. And I think we also need to focus on, I don't find that I'm a cult survivor. I'm just a human being. To Again, there's like that victim versus victor role.
Yeah.
And following, again, now we get to make our own choices, get our own mindset, and just being curious with that, and then connecting with our intuition and our gut instincts. Again, this is a very simple concept. It's not easy, but once you get it down packed, you wouldn't want to live your life any other way. And thank you again so much for bringing those 4 extra questions into this interview. I think it added another layer to this interview. So thank you so much, Jack, for
Thank you,
your
Vivian.
words
Appreciate
of wisdom, and
it.
I really appreciate it. And we will see you the next time we have this series with Jack. Really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.